Question about the concrete decking in your article. I was reading your article about concrete patios on your site, and I have a couple follow-up questions about your recommended approach of coloring and texturing concrete. Does the pigment fade over time? Does it need to be sealed? Can you give me some more background about how you are texturing the concrete and how it differs from the stamped concrete process? And what are the short and long-term maintenance issues for this approach? Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your response.
Okay, so this is a great question, and I think it's really straightforward. For me, after years and years of having done this, I went from pouring stamped and textured projects the way that the world would have recommended, which is pick a color for your base, have that added at the batch plant before you order your concrete. They bring it pre-mixed to a color, you lay it out, and then you put a release color over the top and stamp it in. And that's how it was always done. If you don't seal it, all the color comes off other than the base color of the concrete. So if you had a tan color base, then all the release and everything else that gave it interest comes out, and now you just have a tan based textured concrete. I went from that and realized that because it has to be sealed to retain the concrete, the color anyway, I'd be better off using white concrete right out of the truck, just the way it is, laying it, and then using multiple layers of release over the top. So how I explain a release is sort of, I remember when I was a kid and my mom would make cutout cookies, she'd roll out the dough on the countertop, and then she'd sprinkle flour on the top, so that when she stamped in the cookie pattern, it wouldn't stick to the inside of the cookie, the shape itself, and she could peel them out. And it gave it that layer that was just enough so that the dough didn't stick to the metal. Well, that's what release is in the stamping process. Is when you put that release over the top, it allows you to imprint whatever your pattern is without the concrete sticking to the stamp pad itself. And what I found out was I could use white concrete, just regular standard concrete, so that I didn't have to worry about figuring out colors, and I didn't have to worry about paying extra to have the trucks cleaned out, or worrying about if the colors weren't going to match. And instead I started using multiple different colors of release on the patio, so that as we stamped it, we got a lot of really interesting color variations. Once you rinse that off and you seal it, the color stays in. So to answer the next part of that question about stamping versus texturing, it is the identical same process. You're still imprinting into the surface of the concrete with something. The difference is texturing is you're taking a texture mat that has a variety of shape to it, and you're just crossing over the top of each time you stamp it in, as opposed to a specific pattern is you have to go directly next to it because the pattern has to match exactly because you have grout joint lines. Whereas texturing, I can stamp here and then I can stamp 3 inches over or a foot over, and I can just mirror it all together. And the beauty of that is it gives it a really natural, nice feel without having to worry about making sure all the lines fit. Not only that, it's more comfortable around a pool, it's less slippery around a pool. In terms of the maintenance, you will want to reseal your patio every few years, no matter what. Whether it's traditionally colored and stamped or whether it's doing it this way. If you don't do that, the sealer, especially in high traffic areas, will wear out, and then the color will leave and you'll end up with no color in the concrete underneath. So either way, once you do stamping, no matter what you do, you're going to want to do some maintenance and seal it every couple of years. But the texturing for me just allowed me to play with colors, and I could have a color palette instead of having, tan and black. I could now have a white base, and I could play with any different number of colors. I could do 10 colors on it if I wanted. The argument against it would be, oh, what happens if it spalls and you break out a piece and then you'll see the white underneath. That is in fact true. That was a good argument before to have integral color in, is you could always say, look, if it chips off, you'll still have the natural color underneath and you won't notice it as much. And while it's a true argument, it doesn't hardly make a difference. With the textured patio and the variation of the texture and variation of the color, you're less likely to see a little chip or spall in the patio itself. So that's how I arrived at doing it this way, and over years and years of doing it, it's the only way that I would do patios moving forward. Only thing I've done now in many years is it's the only thing I can see in the foreseeable future to do.